they're going to lose in civil case too, because they know they've done nothing wrong. And the CPS has already said I've done nothing wrong twice now. If I was truly guilty of crimes, imagine how frustrating it would be to watch me for 4 years never go to jail.
We went back to the police in early last year, so early 2023, and they were very clear to us that in their opinion there was sufficient evidence for Tate to have been prosecuted by the CPS, and that they disagreed with the CPS's decision.
The Crown Prosecution Service has ruled that Andrew Tate will face no criminal charges over the claims of violent sexual abuse that are being made by 4 British women in his High Court civil case. As tater-tots everywhere rejoiced, Andrew went on Piers Morgan to dribble complete and utter garbage. I'll react to some things that Andrew said in this interview later in the video. But first, let's clarify what has actually happened. This news relates to the claims of the 4 British women who are suing Andrew Tate in a civil case for alleged violent sexual assaults that took place between 2013 and 2015 in the UK. Some of you may recall seeing some of these women share their testimony in a Vice News documentary and other interviews. It's important to note that this news is not a criminal case against Andrew Tate being dropped. The women reported these alleged assaults to the police over a decade ago. That police investigation dragged on for years until 2019, when the CPS declined to prosecute Tate. The lawyers representing these women had urged the CPS to revisit this decision. They have stuck by their decision not to prosecute, saying that their legal test for a prosecution had not been met. This ruling is completely separate to the Tate's 21 criminal charges in the UK. These charges are from a completely separate constabulary and involve completely separate women. This means that both Tate brothers still have criminal charges in the UK for rape, human trafficking and other crimes, and their approved extradition to the UK that is to go into effect after their Romanian cases still stands. And anyone who doubts this doesn't have to take my word for it. Here is a statement that the CPS themselves released, confirming that these charges remain active and the extradition will go ahead. So when you see this X post, which Andrew posted after this news broke, we can 100% confirm that Andrew is lying like a child. Both the Tate's cases in Romania remain ongoing, where Andrew is charged with rape, human trafficking, sex acts with a minor, trafficking in minors, among other crimes. The Tate's charges in the UK remain, where Andrew is charged with rape, human trafficking, actual bodily harm, and controlling prostitution for gain. And in the USA, the Tates haven't been charged with any crimes yet, but they are under federal criminal investigation for crimes including human trafficking, and a separate criminal investigation in Florida. 0 of the Tate's criminal charges have been dropped, as much as Andrew desperately tried to convince everyone otherwise on Piers Morgan.
And here we are 4 or 5 years later, and they all fall by the wayside. So the only reason it's complicated is because they're trying very hard to drag up imaginary cases from the sky, and they keep collapsing. And I like to believe that if your son was accused by all these different states from all around the world of all these heinous acts for 4 years, and he had to suffer jail and house arrest and lose all his money and have his name slandered, 4 years later, when all the cases started falling by the wayside, and it's an absolute ridiculous overreach of the Romanian judicial system to lock me in my house for 3 years and then have the case thrown out because they made up the victims, because it was all completely fake.
No matter how many times they desperately try to convince you otherwise, 0 of the Tate's criminal cases have been dropped. As Piers tried to discuss what had happened, Andrew went on a rant dribbling rubbish and obsessively repeating the idea that these women were just after money.
So they will have their case in a civil case, but it won't be criminal now. But that doesn't impact the other constabulary, which brought 21 charges against you and your brother Tristan earlier this year, right? That's still ongoing and still separate to this.
That's correct. So these 4 girls, they did a crowdfund and they begged the world for money. And they spoke to loads of MPs and Vice News, etc. And it turns out they have no evidence at all. They begged the world for money, and now they're suing me for money. They're desperate for money. And then they went to the police, and the police said they have no evidence.
He seems to think that if he says these women were only after money enough times, that it will become true. As for his claim that Vice News provided no evidence, and the police say there was no evidence, this would be a cool story if we hadn't seen some of this evidence, including this now infamous text message that he sent one of the women after one of these alleged rapes, saying, "I love raping you." And this voice note, which one of the women say he sent them, mocking them after an alleged assault.
Am I a bad person? Because the more you didn't like it, the more I enjoyed it. I fucking loved how much you hated it. Turned me on. Why am I like that? Why? I am one of the most dangerous men on this planet. Sometimes you forget exactly how lucky you were to get fucked by me. Would you rather me pin you down and make you do things you didn't like, or would you rather fuck? You didn't like that I was thinking I can do whatever I want to. That's what it is. I'm the smartest person on this fucking planet. Are you seriously so offended I strangled you a little bit? You didn't fucking pass out. Chill the fuck out. Jesus Christ, I thought you were cool. What's wrong with you?
I know that there is no evidence is part of the script that Andrew loves to recite, but this is just moronic when there is evidence that the public has seen that is being used in this case. Next, Andrew reveals to Piers his reason for why this case was thrown out, which is just astonishing.
The reason that the case against me here with these 4 girls was thrown out is because I know who the 4 girls are.
You've got to be joking. The case was thrown out because he knows who these 4 girls are. This is an enormous backflip. For years now, he has been saying that these women are made up, don't exist, and are imaginary.
Then the BBC says, well, we found victims. So they have a girl with a fake name called Sophie. They don't show her face. They ask me, what do you think about Sophie? How can I comment on Sophie when Sophie isn't real? Firstly, you've made her up. Secondly, I don't know who you're talking about. You're saying that 9 years ago, I was emotionally controlling? What does that mean? 9 years ago, I said you shouldn't party with those guys in the club. Is that what I said? I don't know what I said. I don't know who she is, if she exists at all. But with me, they've been attacking me for a solid 1.5 years, to the point where they had to make up people. Sophie, 13 years ago, you said to Sophie, make me a coffee. What comment do you want me to? If this person even exists, which they don't, then I destroy the BBC, make it very clear to them that Sophie doesn't exist, on repeat, because she doesn't. And 2 days later, Alice appears.
It's all made up names.
It's all made up names. So Evie,
we could call whatever name we want. But
yeah, Evie is saying 13 years ago I choked her or something. You can get, any man on earth can get screwed with that. If this person exists at all. And she literally, they said, why are you coming forward now? And I think this actor, the person literally said, because now he's rich and famous. They literally said those words. I'm actually such a nice person that I've never had anyone come at me.
The BBC has spoken to somebody since your arrest who says exactly those things, that with you it's all manipulation, there's an ulterior motive to everything you do.
Is this Sophie? Oh, it's Sophie, the fake name, no face. No,
I was so intent on wanting to please him. And
now, of course, we knew that Andrew had been lying about this. I've documented on my channel before that I applied with the King's Bench and got access to Andrew's defense that he filed with the court to the claims made by these women. And although Andrew had been publicly saying that these women were made up, he told the court under oath that he knew exactly who they were and gave a detailed recollection of his version of the time he spent with each woman. And now, in front of the world, he is effectively admitting that he has been lying for the past few years, saying that these women don't exist.
It's because I know who the 4 girls are.
Lads, this is why you shouldn't constantly lie like a pathetic child as Andrew does, because it comes to a point where it is impossible to keep up with your own bullshit. Andrew Tate continued dribbling rubbish to Piers Morgan.
I provided proof. I provided text message conversations that these girls are lying, and the case was thrown out.
This is just flat out a lie. It did not happen. Numerous sources have said that the police told them that they disagreed with the CPS's decision not to prosecute. There is no evidence apart from Tate himself saying it. That's the Hertfordshire police said that there was no evidence, let alone because Andrew passed on some text messages. This is just one of Tate's go-to childish lies, which he has also said about alleged victims in the Romanian case. If we are to believe this, it would mean that Andrew has text message evidence that these women conspired to lie about him and hasn't posted it. Please. Of course, the Tate's criminal charges in the UK also came up during this interview, and during the conversation, Andrew was obsessively, manically bringing up one of his favourite talking points, that they won't tell him the names of the 3 women who are involved in these criminal charges.
The CPS won't tell me who the girls are. And the reason that's ongoing, unlike the other one from Hertfordshire Police, is because they won't tell me who these victims are. And I've said, okay, who are the girls? And they're saying, we're not telling you. We're not going to tell you when. We're not going to tell you where. We're not going to tell you who. As for Bedfordshire, they are legally obliged to tell me who the victims are, the supposed alleged victims, but they only have to do that once I have been remanded.
What Andrew said in that last clip is actually true. It is typical for someone to get all of these details when they are remanded, which means that this would happen when he gets to the UK and is arrested. This is exactly why it is just silly that he keeps bringing this up. He is acting like it is some out of the ordinary example where he is being treated oh so unfairly. The man is an absolute drama queen. Next, Piers asked Andrew a question about the alleged victims in the Tate's criminal case in the UK. Get a load of his response.
You don't know who's brought these allegations to Bedfordshire Police in these 21 charges, but we know it's 3 women in your case, 1 in Tristan's case. Is it your belief that all of those women are more likely than not to have worked for you and Tristan?
Absolutely not. I know every girl who worked for me, and they all contacted me and defended me. Every single girl who's ever worked for me has defended me.
This bumbling moron is making an absolute fool of himself. Every single girl who has ever worked for me has defended me, he says. It is moments like this that reinforce my belief that the Tate brothers are the most embarrassing childish liars in social media history. Even without getting into all of the women listed as victims in their Romanian cases who worked for their webcam and owned businesses. This entire story surrounds 4 British women who are suing Andrew Tate for violent sexual assaults, 2 of which worked for him in his webcam business. They are most certainly not defending him. And to give you an idea of how in court Andrew is forced to contradict his ridiculous, moronic lies, if we look at some statements he made in his defense against these claims to the High Court, he says about one of the women that she more or less agreed immediately to work in the webcam business he was proposing to set up. It was agreed she would work from 6 PM to 1 AM, and about another of the women, he says she was introduced to him by the first woman as someone who would be interested in doing webcam work, and that she agreed to do the same hours for the same rate of pay as the first woman. As you can see, we are already seeing examples of Andrew Tate being forced under oath to make a fool of himself by contradicting his silly lies. Next, the topic of the Tates' approved extradition to the UK to face their criminal charges came up.
So the question about Romania, if they decide to make a final decision about you, say for argument's sake, they drop the charges against you tomorrow, you would then be presumably immediately extradited to the UK. Is that your understanding?
I don't think it would work immediately. They would have to file to drop the charges, and they would have to justify to drop the charges, and they'd have to explain why they put me through all of these things while they don't have a case. And then Cheto would come involved because the European court would have to get involved for why I was falsely imprisoned, and I was locked up for 3 years, and they'd owe me about $100 million in false and lost income. And then there'd be a whole case around that. All my judicial processes would have to finish in Romania before I could be extradited. So either way, it's a minimum of 10 years.
In response to this explanation by Andrew, I'll refer to this clip of the lawyer for the 4 British women, Matthew Jury, explaining how the extradition process would work in an interview with True Geordie.
They try and spin everything as a victory, of course, right? When the UK sought to extradite them, the extradition was approved by the Romanian courts. Let me stress that. It was approved. It was just postponed until the end of the Romanian proceedings. And indeed, currently, until the end of any custodial sentence that the Tates might have to serve at the pleasure of the Romanian prison system. That's standard, right? Romania got there first. Let's put it that way. They started their prosecution first. They should be entitled to end that prosecution and let Romanian justice take its course before the Tates are extradited to the UK to face prosecution and potentially imprisonment here. But what it means is, whatever happens in Romania, they're coming to England to be tried by an English court for allegations of sexual violence.
So they could do time in Romania, get out, boom, you're straight into English
You'd
jail.
be coming straight from Romanian prison. You wouldn't get out, straight from Romanian prison, on a flight, England, prosecuted here.
The extradition would be immediate. Of course, first, the Tates would have a right to an appeal process, but he is ridiculously exaggerating, saying that this would take 10 years.
It's a minimum of 10 years.
You'll notice that a theme across the rest of these clips is Andrew exaggerating, saying that all of this is going to take 10 or 11 years. Next, the investigation into Bree Stern's allegations against Tate in Los Angeles came up.
4 years later, when all the cases started falling by the wayside, because the Los Angeles case has also fallen apart and collapsed.
To be clear, Tate has not had charges dropped in Los Angeles. The LA District Attorney's Office simply declined to press charges over the allegations of sexual assault by Tate's ex-girlfriend Bree Stern, as if having a jurisdiction in the world not prosecuting you for sex crimes is some massive achievement. But while we are talking about this Los Angeles case, I need to bring up the funniest thing that came from this recent news. This tweet from Tristan. Tristan Tate is a very, very confused boy. Not only does he think that this recent news about allegations against his brother involves him, he says that the California investigation that is entirely about Bree Stern's allegations against Andrew is a victory for him. Go on and flaunt this huge, huge win, Tristan. You sure showed us, you absolute moron. Next, it was time to talk about the Tate's Romanian cases. Andrew started by trying to claim that it was all about tax evasion, and desperately was trying to convince us all that this was going to take 10 or 11 years.
And if I go to the UK, I'll be remanded after this extradition warrant is executed, but that can't be executed currently because the Romanian state has a case against me for tax evasion, which will take at least 10 to 11 years. So this is something that's going to take 10 or 11 more years to eventually be satisfied.
Just a pathetic child trying to downplay everything. Yes, Romania is investigating him for tax evasion, but the current cases which he is charged with and which need to be resolved before he is extradited to the UK involve him being charged with rape, human trafficking, sex acts with a minor because he is accused of violently raping a 15-year-old girl, and trafficking in minors, which comes about because one of the girls that he had producing pornography for him on webcam was a minor. Tate went on to speak about the decision that was made in December to send the case file for their Romanian case back to the prosecutor. All of these upcoming ridiculous lies are things that I have debunked time and time again, so I won't spend much time on it. I'll just fact check on screen when necessary. Notice a technique that Andrew uses a few times during this rant, where he makes a statement that is true, then says basically, and twists it into a load of bullshit.
Yeah, so what happened there is in December of last year, the entire case under the Biden admin was thrown back to prosecutors for irregular evidence, basically corruption. The entire case file was littered with corruption. They had lied and made multiple mistakes. They They had made false translations. They had made false documents for false girls who didn't exist. They lied from head to toe. It's the kind of thing that a prosecutor would go to jail for in a serious country. But of course, we're in Romania. And even the Romanian court threw the entire file back and said, there's irregularities in evidence. Basically, it was all corrupt. And the entire file was thrown back to the prosecutor. And the prosecutor was told he has to fix this file. Here we stand nearly 11 months later. The file is just sitting on his desk. He hasn't fixed anything. He hasn't changed anything. And the reason for that is because how can you fix things you've made up? You can't.
And this was essentially the rest of the interview. Andrew lying non-stop about his cases and charges, trying to convince us all that his Romanian cases are all about financial crimes, and that they are going to take 10 or 11 years.
By Romanian law, when the case is rejected in the preliminary chamber, it goes back on the prosecutor's desk and it can remain there for up to 10 years to basically be tried again at his discretion. So I understand he's going to try again at some point, perhaps with some of the financial crime. As we all know, I have lots and lots of money. I'm very, very rich. So the Romanians seem to be unhappy about parts of that.
I'd like to finish this video by going back to the case at the heart of this latest news and play a segment where the lawyer for the 4 women involved, Matthew Jury, spoke to True Geordie and made some important points. He says that the Hertfordshire police disagreed with the CPS and believed that there was enough evidence to convict Andrew Tate, and he speaks about why he believes the CPS have declined to prosecute. I need to note that this interview is from last year and he is speaking of the CPS's decision in 2019 not to prosecute, but it feels very relevant to this latest decision.
I have deep concerns, which I've already expressed, that the investigation may not have been an effective one, and that the decision by the CPS in 2019 not to prosecute was a wrong one. We went back to the police in early last year, so early 2023, and they were very clear to us that in their opinion there was sufficient evidence for Tate to have been prosecuted by the CPS, and that they disagreed with the CPS's decision, right? We went to the CPS and said, are you going to reconsider your decision in light of the fact that Tate's been arrested and is being prosecuted for the very crimes he's alleged to have committed here in England? And the answer was a resounding, no, we're not. Now, I'm going to stress, this is just my opinion, but I believe that there is a chance that was a very political decision by the CPS. Because how could the CPS turn around now and say, you know what, we got it wrong. We should have prosecuted him for the alleged crimes he committed in Hertfordshire, or which were under investigation by the Hertfordshire Constabulary. We should have prosecuted him for those years ago, and before he fled to Romania, where he went on to allegedly commit more crimes, and where he has been the subject of an investigation and prosecution by the Romanian authorities that has likely cost the Romanian taxpayer millions. How does the CPS own up to that mistake now? I'm not sure that they can, without there being very serious blowback.
People don't want to lose jobs, which would be potentially the outcome of that, right? Because when you look into people, when you look into cases that have gone like that, people tend to lose their jobs over it, so that they're not going to want to accept that.
I mean, I couldn't speak to that, but I do wonder whether there is a decision that's been made, which is, okay, so we're not going to revisit the complaints that were made to the Hertfordshire police, and we're not going to prosecute those complaints. Because if we do that, we've got to admit a very serious mistake that had some far-reaching ramifications. So what we're going to do instead is we're just going to hide behind the fact that Bedfordshire has investigated the complaints by women under their jurisdiction, and that the CPS has obviously decided to prosecute those complaints.
The new ones, sorry.
The new ones.
Yeah.
And then hopefully the Hertfordshire...
We'll get them anyway, sort of thing.
The Hertfordshire victims, we've got them anyway, so that's fine. It's not fine.
Agreed.
It's not fine. Not if you're a woman who wasn't believed, despite the abundance of evidence, and was essentially let down by the system, which then let Tate walk free, allowed him to I'm going to say flee to Romania because he knew he was in trouble here. And he's admitted that.
He's admitted why he went to Romania. He's even said the laws were more relaxed there. That's why I want to go there.
Yeah. Where he allegedly set up a human trafficking enterprise. And so I don't think it's unreasonable for me to have suspicions that the CPS realise they've really made a mess of this.
Do you know what, though? By not admitting it, by not accepting it.
Makes it worse.
Do you think anyone's looking at you guys thinking, well, they've rejected it, must have been fine? No one's saying that. We're all looking at you going, dude, he's all over the news, man. He's taunting you. If you don't acknowledge this, all you're doing is saying, when we make mistakes, we'll never accept it. And we're actually an organisation that's incapable of putting things right. That's even worse now.
It is.
You're not fooling anyone.
But that in itself, I think, is a scandal that hasn't been properly discussed, that hasn't properly been reported on, but I think should be part of the conversation.
This, I think, is an important insight and extra context to the situation. What you saw there was jury giving an insight into the side of the women involved. Do you know where we haven't heard such an insight this week? On Piers Morgan Uncensored. When Piers heard this news during the week, he was frothing at the mouth with dollar signs in his eyes. And within less than 24 hours, he had Andrew Tate zooming in and gave him a massive platform to spew absolute garbage and lies for nearly half an hour. You would have to be knowledgeable about all of Tate's cases to be able to combat such rapid-fire bullshit. Piers was utterly unprepared to do this, but he did not care. Yes, he might not use these interviews to deliberately help Tate spread lies about these cases, like we see from the likes of Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens and Patrick Bet-David, but at the end of the day, he sees women potentially being violently sexually assaulted as a chance to profit, while making no effort to properly platform the other side and properly fact-check Tate's lies about these cases involving very, very serious charges. What do you think about how Piers Morgan handles this topic? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the production of this content, as well as liking, subscribing and sharing, you can buy Gadget a coffee or join as a member. You can find these links in the description.